everyone, and welcome to the final episode in our countdown to Halloween. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. First and foremost, thank you all so much for listening and traversing these stories with us. After tonight's episode, we will be transitioning to a bi weekly release schedule, with our first episode releasing on November 14th, 2025. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and be sure to join our Discord. All of these can be found on our link tree at linktr.ee / Price Paranormal Research Group. Or check our show notes for the link. If you enjoyed our episode, be sure to share it everywhere you can and help us build the community. Check out our merch as well. As a special thank you, we will be running a sale from tonight on Halloween to November 8th of 2025. Be sure to use code Halloween for 10% off your purchase as a thank you for listening. This code will not be shared anywhere else but in this show. And without further ado, welcome to the show. I'd been driving for hours. The highway stretching empty in every direction. Fatigue pressed down on me like a weight I just couldn't shake. When I saw the signs for a rest stop, I pulled right in, grateful for the chance to rest and stretch. I stepped out, feeling the cold night air bite at my face. Everything was silent except the hum of distant traffic. I walked around the car, my muscles were stiff, and I let out a strong sigh. And then I returned to the driver's seat, leaned back, and just closed my eyes for a minute. And then there was a soft tap on my window. My eyes snapped open. A little girl stood at the window, maybe 10 or 12. She was alone. And then she spoke to me.
Will you let me in?
I blinked, a little disoriented. The request sounded harmless enough. I began to reach for the door, but then there was this weight, a pressure on my chest, a subtle, insistent compulsion, urging me to unlock the door, to let her in. My stomach twisted and my body just wanted to run away. Everything in me screamed not to let her in. She's just a kid, I told myself. The child tilted their head slightly, almost waiting, and that compulsion grew stronger, pressing right at my chest. It was almost suffocating. Every instinct screamed to resist, but my hand twitched, creeping toward the door handle. My chest was tight, and my fingers just itched to obey. And that's when I noticed her eyes, black, void black. No whites, no iris. They swallowed the dim light around them. Panic hit me. My awareness snapped back, and I realized at the last moment that my hand had been on the door handle, itching forward, as if I weren't controlling it at all. It was only then that I really took in all of the details. The pale, almost ghostly skin, the too big, stiff clothing that looked decades old, the eerily calm posture, the hands folded neatly at her side. Everything about her just seemed off. It was so subtle, but it was unmistakably off. And those eyes, those black, endless eyes. I yanked my hand back, pressing the lock button. My heart was hammering against my chest. I was gasping for air. I hadn't opened the door. I hadn't let her in. My pulse roared in my ears. I started the engine and I drove away. I looked in the rearview mirror and she was gone. No trace, no shadows, nothing. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I thought to myself, did I just leave a kid behind? What if she needed help? No, that wasn't a kid. What was it? But those eyes. What the hell was that? I gripped the steering wheel tight, unable to shake the feeling and the memory of those black eyes, the endlessness, and the suffocating pressure that had tried to make me obey. Even now, sitting at home telling you the story, I can still feel it. The weight of that compulsion, patient and relentless. Will it come back? Is it watching me? Will I be strong enough to resist next time? And the memory of those eyes and of her makes me check the locks on the doors and windows more than once. And I leave the driveway light on every night just in case. My advice? Don't let them in. You just heard the story of a lone driver on a desolate highway, a rest stop, a quiet night, and a soft tap on the window. A child standing alone in the dark, pale, calm, polite, asking to be let in.
At first, it sounds innocent. A lost kid on a cold night. But then come the details that don't quite fit: the stillness, the strange clothing, and the eyes, black and bottomless, like they could swallow the world whole.
That moment, the compulsion, the pressure, the fight to resist, echoes through dozens of accounts. People who swore they weren't dreaming, who felt the same weight pressing down, the same eerie calm from children who didn't seem human at all.
It's one of those stories that sticks with you. You start to wonder if you would have reacted differently, if you would have rolled the window down, if you would have said yes. And the truth is, the people who claim to have met them all say the same thing. Something was wrong, but by the time they realized it, they were already moving to obey.
Tonight, we're diving into that world, the real reports, the folklore, the encounters that have crept into late night radio shows, internet forums, and whispers told by firelight.
From the first documented accounts in the 1900s to eerily similar stories stretching back further than most realize, we'll trace where the legend began and what it might mean.
Because whether these children are ghosts, something extraterrestrial, or just the shape of fear itself, the people who've seen them never quite shake the feeling they weren't meant to survive the
And on Halloween night, when knocks on the door are expected and the line between trick and terror grows thin, their story feels closer than ever.
Welcome to They're Still Here. I'm David.
And I'm Jesse. Tonight we explore the chilling legend of the Black Eyed Children.
The tale of the Black Eyed Children was first documented and widely publicized in 1996 when journalist Brian Bethel shared his unsettling encounter in Abilene, Texas. Sitting in his car late at night, he was approached by two boys who asked for a ride to their mother's house. But something was off. Their eyes were completely black, devoid of any whites or irises. Bethel's unease grew. He quickly drove away, later recounting the experience in a ghost related mailing list.
Now, the fascinating thing about his story is that is actually the first documented case of it. Um, Due to a lot of the stories and everything from the past, now there was actual lore and legends of Black Eyed Children back in as far as the 40s, I believe. And there was another story that came through in 1952. But yeah, there's been not so much documented cases, but legends and everything else that you hear about in smaller towns about said children. So I've always thought that was really fascinating that no one ever documented it or said anything or really had anything until then, because it started in, I think there was an uptick in sightings, but his was the first one where he finally talked about it. I think it was because, you know, how a lot of people, there's too many skeptics. Nobody really wants to talk about the things that they did or did not see back then because of how they've been looked at. But
Right.
it's pretty fascinating
Well,
just
and that
how,
happens.
and it was
That,
like everything got more active in the late 80s to that time.
yeah, and that happens a lot in these kind of stories, right? Or really with
Hmm.
anything, right?
True.
One
Very
person
true.
comes out and shares their experience or their story, and then it emboldens people to come and share theirs, right? And it's kind of like you see it a lot, especially in this field with UFO experiences, right? Where they
Oh,
don't
very
want
much
to
so.
talk about it. And I mean, kind of the same thing with people that are going through, paranormal infestations or, have some kind of paranormal thing that is affecting their life and they don't want to talk to anybody about it because they feel like, well, it's just in my head, right? I'm just crazy, right? And that's what they tell
Right.
themselves. They tell themselves that people are going to say they're crazy. But
Very
then
much
once
so.
somebody goes on record and puts their story out there and says, "Hey, this is what I experienced," like, what the hell, right?
Hmm.
It makes them feel
That
like they're not alone anymore.
100%. And that's the one thing that I always love whenever someone finally comes out and brings their story to light. And that's the reason why I love that that's what we're going to help others do as well. But it's the fact that he was like basically the pioneer to bring people forward to finally bring up these stories and talk about them. And I mean, just so people can help each other out trying to figure out what this is and
Right,
what if it's an entity, if it's like a UFO, like an alien of some sort. I mean, you don't know. That's the crazy part.
right. And that's kind of what it boils down to here. And now the thing is too, and kind of the tough part for our field and what we do is not only does it bring up the opportunity for people to share their stories,
Hmm.
but it does also embolden the people that are clout chasing, that
Yes.
are out there to say, "Oh, well, I had this experience too," right? But they didn't. And then that makes the whole thing look bad, right? And so when you're looking into these, especially in accounts that happened 40, 50 years before the account that came first,
Hmm.
you really have to kind of look at them and take them with a grain of salt or maybe five,
Truth.
because it's like they may be the same way. Now, I'm not saying, discount all of them, but definitely do your research,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Make sure that you
Right.
know what you're looking into.
Right, exactly. And it's like, definitely work with people, talk with people, help people when you can, but also you got to help yourself. You have to protect yourself, not just, from from the black eyed kids, but also from people looking to take advantage,
Oh, yes, I
right?
agree 100%.
And so that's just something small I wanted to throw out there to our listeners especially to kind of point out that not everything is being taken as fact for us.
Yes, that is very, very true.
However, we're also not discounting.
No,
The,
because have to find proof one way or another.
the beautiful thing is, it's kind of like the way that I explain faith. Faith is an answer to an unanswerable question, right?
Hmm. Yes, it is.
I don't know how many answers we can actually gather. So I guess in a way, you just have to have faith that you'll figure it
Yes,
out, right? And
very much
so
so.
that's really what I'm thinking will need to be done from there.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, the one thing that's really fascinating about Bethel's story is like we said, it resonated with so many people, sparking a wave of similar reports. People from various parts of the United States began sharing their own encounters with children who had black eyes, pale skin, and an unsettling presence. These stories, through varied in detail, shared common elements that blurred the line between folklore and reality.
And the black eyed children, or BEKs, is kind of what we're going to call them at this point because it's easier, are typically described as appearing between the ages of 6 and 16, often in pairs, although there are also a lot of accounts where it's been a singular BEK. They wear outdated clothing. They usually speak in a calm yet insistent manner. Their most distinguishing feature, though, are always their eyes that are entirely black, devoid of any sclera or iris, a feature that a lot of people really find unsettling, and rightfully so.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, witnesses often report a sense of dread and an overwhelming composure to let them in, whether it's into their home or vehicle. This feeling is so strong that many have found themselves reaching for the door handle before realizing what they're doing. And once the encounter ends, the children vanish without a trace, leaving behind only a lingering sense of unease. Witnesses often describe the black eyed children as having an unnatural stillness. They move with deliberate slowness, and their facial expressions are often described as blank or emotionless. Their voices are calm, yet there's an underlying urgency in their request.
Many report feeling an intense sense of fear and unease during the encounter. This fear isn't just from the children's appearance, but from an overwhelming sense that something is terribly wrong. It's as if the children are not quite human, but something else entirely.
The compulsion to let them in is another common thread. Witnesses often describe feeling as though they have no choice but to comply with the children's request. This feeling is so strong that many have found themselves reaching for the door handle before realizing what they're doing.
That's one of the most interesting things about this, right? It's that compulsion. It's that like I have to do it, but I don't even realize I'm doing it. Like how do
Like I
you
said, they're pros at being manipulative.
yeah, right. It's it's just so odd because there's not a whole lot of things that you can kind of tie into that, right? Like
I
that
think the
level of
reason why you have
manipulation.
that, right, and also I think the reason why you have so much compulsion, especially if you're a good person, you can't help but you, it's like one of those things where your heart wants to help, but something in your mind is telling you, no, 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 no. Like you're having that fight between the two. So you don't know if you should go for the handle or not go for the handle. And in this case, you realize like you feel bad for these children or something, and you're already doing it and not realizing you're doing it.
And even after the encounter, witnesses often report a lingering sense of dread and unease, which is something that you heard in our opening story, right? The idea of still checking to make sure the doors are locked, to leaving the lights on, right?
Yeah.
And some have experienced even physical symptoms such as headaches or nausea. I read one report where a gentleman actually ended up getting diagnosed with a form of cancer after letting them in, right?
Yeah.
And other ones even report feeling as though they've been marked in some, right? So there is something psychologically happening, right? Whether it's
Agreed, 100%.
kind of like a spiritual PTSD, and it's like I don't know because you brought up, your heart is saying to let them in while your brain is telling you not to, right? But I think it's a
Right.
little
You
bit
have that
different
sense
than
of
that.
unease, but it's kind of like you're fighting between the two.
I
And it
think it's a
kind
little bit
of
different.
it is possibly
I
different in that
think,
case. And it makes me wonder when we were talking about like when you mentioned radiation, like they're putting off something.
right.
Now, isn't there something that causes hallucinations, nausea, like other things, but it was EVP related?
Yeah.
I
Um,
can't remember what it was called. I just I blanked at the moment
we'll
because I
we'll we'll do
know
some
it's
looking and we'll mention it a little bit later if we find it.
yeah, I agree
Um,
because I'm trying to remember what that's
worst
called and I
case,
can't think of it off the top of my head.
worst case, what we'll do because I want to start doing this anyway. So this is a weird time to do a little bit of announcement, but I'd like to start doing some like shorts and stuff like that to put online as well for people to watch. So maybe we'll talk about that in a little short. Maybe do some updates or some new information if we find any things like that.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds like
Yeah.
a great plan.
Now, one thing, like I was saying, and you had said something along the lines of, your heart wants to let them in, but your brain does not, right? I
Hmm.
feel like it's a little bit different because it's triggering your fight or flight, right?
Yes,
And so in reality, I think what it is there's something going on psychologically forcing you to comply, right? But it's your
right.
gut that says, hey, something's wrong here. Because that's where you always feel your fight or flight is in your gut, right? It's
That is
and so
true.
I think that's really where it comes down to
I
is,
could definitely see that. I could definitely see that.
now there's there is so much information about this out there, like because this kind of blew up everywhere.
Yeah,
And, definitely something that, you know, one episode is not always going to do justice.
that is true. That is very, very true. And I like how you put that. That does make sense whenever it comes down to fight or flight. I mean, you got to look at it. These consistent traits and behaviors have led many to believe that the black eyed children are not just a modern urban legend, but a manifestation of something much older and much more sinister.
All right, Jesse, now we are at theories and explanations. We got there.
And
So,
I know, I brought up a lot already.
well, that's just going to end up being what we do. We're going to end up talking about the theories before we even get there. It just is what it is.
I
But
mean, I can't help it. I
yeah,
start thinking about stuff and I just have to say it.
right. Well, you don't
Or at
have a
least ask
filter
questions.
sometimes. That happens.
I do too.
For anybody wondering, me and her have been friends for years.
Yes, we
So
have.
this is normal
Very normal.
and so theories about the black-eyed children are just all over the place, right? Some believe that they're ghosts or spirits or manifestations of the dead seeking to make contact with the living, while others suggest that they're extraterrestrial beings, maybe aliens or interdimensional entities, using the guise of children to gain access to our world. Now, I don't know exactly if I agree with those. I think that they're kind of in a league of their own, right? Because I think it could be something multiversal. I think that it could be something that's
Well,
spiritual in
that's the hard
nature.
part.
Right.
I mean,
But
that's what makes it difficult because we have no clue.
right,
They don't leave any evidence behind other
right.
than the feeling that you feel.
Other than the fear,
Yeah,
it's just fear. So is it just a manifestation of fear?
possibility.
You know, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Because I mean,
But
you got to look at it this way too. Because I mean, skeptics argue that the black-eyed children are simply a modern urban legend fueled by the internet and social media. They point to the similarities between BEK stories and other folklore, such as the vanishing hitchhiker tales, like we spoke about earlier, suggesting that these stories are merely a modern iteration of age-old myths. Now, I like the aspect of them speaking of saying it's fueled by internet and social media, especially because he had the first documented case.
right.
So that kind of spread like wildfire. Now, here's a question, and we've discussed this before, and I don't think we ever put it in an episode yet. But remember when we talked about tulpas?
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of the tulpa or the egregore, which is going to be its own episode, just so everybody knows. So we're not going to get too deep into those, but basically what those are, they're thought forms, right? And so usually a tulpa is the thought form of one person, while an
Yes.
egregore is a thought form of a group of people.
It kind
And
of goes back to what was it, Slenderman? Whenever that whole
so Slender Man,
storyline came up, but that was a whole different aspect
well,
too.
I think I think Slender Man's a little bit different. That came out as a creepy pasta, kind of like the Rake, right? Now
Yeah, I agree.
the
So
interesting
it's
thing
still
about the Rake,
it goes into your subconscious though. It's something that
right?
you've heard of. You have it in your head, and somehow some right elements just trigger it, and that's what you end up dealing with.
It's like
So
I've brought up multiple
I
times. I
know.
know to you, just the idea of Bigfoot. Now,
Yes.
don't come for me in the chat, but what if Bigfoot is a tulpa himself or an egregore, right? How powerful do these things get? You look at how many people believe in these things, right?
Yes.
So is it entirely possible that there has been an accidental creation, right? And
That's
like
always feasible.
like I said earlier, I mean, you know, there the theory that black-eyed children are just a psychological phenomena or a manifestation of our fear or anxiety is it's completely plausible because when you look at what they make us feel and what they do to us, right, to people,
Yes.
it really is a result of shared cultural fears and expectations and what you need to do, what you don't need to do. If somebody knocks on your door in the middle of the night, you're not supposed to let them in, right? But for some
Right.
reason, you are. You're trying to, your body is fighting against you and trying to let them in while your fight or flight is triggered.
No, 100%. Because I mean, it's one of those things where you can't, you know exactly how you're going to feel or anything when it comes down to that. But no, I agree with you 100% on that one. I believe that, I mean, except for, I mean, I can't say much. I believe in Bigfoot, so just add me to that list. But
Fair.
there's too many blurry photos.
Right?
I want a photo shoot with Bigfoot. I want those clear shots. um, yeah, it's just, it's another one of those unknowns that's always out there. So when it comes down to it, if someone has their own like lore legends that they've heard of in another like another place, another country, anything like that, please let us know. I would be very fascinated to learn
Yeah.
how it could be black-eyed children or it could be black-eyed anything when it comes down to the situation and what it
Well,
calls for.
and when you look at it, this is really so the black-eyed children phenomena is kind of limited to the states. I mean, even there's
Which
not even really
really
anything in
surprises
Canada.
me.
Right.
I know,
It's
which is
odd.
really crazy.
Yeah. And so uh It's definitely something we've got to really think about and find the explanation.
That is true. And regardless of the explanation, the black eyed children phenomenon taps into deep seated fears: the fear of the unknown, the fear of the other, and the fear of being vulnerable in our own homes. These stories resonate because they touch on primal fears that we all share.
That's the biggest thing about this is fear. It's always about fear. And so the question for me comes in, is that their purpose? Are they just fear incarnate? Are they taking something to us that is precious? Children. As people, we are set to protect children. But then all of a sudden, something is taking that and using it against us.
It's like
And
they
the
know our
bottom,
weaknesses.
right. And the bottom line of it is always fear. Is that what they
Yes.
feed on? Or is that what gives them power? Or is that just what they want?
And it's one of those things we'll never quite know.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude tonight's special, remember the stories we've shared. Whether you believe in the black eyed children or not, their tales serve as a reminder of the mysteries that still linger in the shadows.
This Halloween, as the veil between worlds thins, keep your doors locked and your lights on, because some stories, especially on a night like tonight, are better left untold.
Thank you so much for joining us on this eerie journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, you should always think twice before inviting them in.
My name is Jesse. Thank you for tuning in to They're Still Here. Be sure to follow us on all our social media and join our Discord. Check our link tree for all of our links. Our theme is SCP X7X, 6th Floor by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Stay curious, stay safe. We will see you soon.